Welcome into the Illini cast, and what a big weekend it was for Illini football. They defeated Minnesota off of the arm of not Luke Altmaier, but Paddock. He came in, final 3 plays, went 3 for 3, and led the Illini to a scoring drive. Wow. Sonny and I admittedly were both at weddings this Saturday, so we had to rewatch the game. But I was following along on Gamecast and I saw Paddock is in, and I had no idea how long he was in at that point. I was like, wait, thought Luke Altmaier was in the first half. Was this like an entire second half thing? Then I researched the stats after the game while I was at the wedding reception. And I was like, he only threw 3 passes. He was the final drive. Sonny, I am speechless.
As am I. Similar to you, I had the phone playing, or I had the game playing on my cell phone while speeches were going on at a wedding. So I didn't even realize that it was Paddock in until I saw the Paddock graphic show up, and I had to zoom. I'm like, wait a minute, that wasn't Luke. So I didn't realize that he had gotten out of the game. But man, I mean, usually we're on the other end of this. Usually we give up a last minute touchdown, a last minute field goal, and here you and I are recording our game review episode in a somber mood. It's really nice being on the opposite end this time, man. Truth be told, outside a stupid Johnny Newton penalty, we've had a really good team 3 weeks in a row, and I think this is kind of the team that you and I were kind of envisioning coming into the season. Not a perfect team, maybe not as the 10-9 win team that you and I were originally projecting, but a good football team that could compete with anyone in the Big Ten West. And it's nice, and it's a little special nice because it was against PJ Fleck.
I mean, Brett Bielema is still undefeated against the Minnesota Golden Gophers at 10-0, and won 3 straight against the Gophers with PJ Fleck at the helm. I mean, this is just an unbelievable owning. Like, Minnesota's got to feel like, what do we got to do? Like, this just feels impossible to beat Brett Bielema. And here, Paddock comes in, does the 3 for 3 thing. But the main storyline of the game was stars being the stars. Jerzon Newton comes in the second half and does Jerzon Newton things, getting in the face of the Greek Gopher, Kalakamanis. And you see what offensively Illinois was able to do, getting the ball into Caden Fegan's hands, not only for the up the gut situations, but for some creative ways to get him the football, like for his touchdown pass that Luke Altmaier threw him. Isaiah Williams, the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week this week. He has the most receptions out of any Big Ten wide receiver. That includes the likes of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Ibekwe of Ohio State. This is a Isaiah Williams that we haven't really seen too much. We've seen the screen pass Isaiah Williams. We've seen the out of the backfield Isaiah Williams. The bye week really helped Barry Lunny develop some schemes so Isaiah Williams could get things going vertically and down the fields. That's something that the Illinois offense has missed so much. So got to give credit to Barry Lunny, got to give credit to Isaiah, and I got to give credit to this offensive line for the Illini to do just enough for Illinois to crack this victory against Minnesota.
Our offensive line, was arguably one of the worst in P5 for the better part of the first season, and now it's worked its way up to, at the very least, average. And that's kind of all we were kind of hoping for at this point. Caden Fegan has essentially been the reason for our turnaround. You and I, we've been kind of complaining week after week on what was the identity of this football team. What did they want to do? What kind of team did we want to be? And ever since Fagan's emergence, we kind of see we're a team that's going to get 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards on the first 2 downs, set ourselves up for an ideal play for Luke Altmaier to make on 3rd down, and just keep extending drives. I know we won time possession against Minnesota. I think we had 150 more total yards than Minnesota did. It's just because we played Bielema ball, which is exactly what we had been wanting, from the beginning. Reggie Love missed this game again, and we can talk about it a little later. But man, if you try to figure out who the player of this game was, whether it's Paddock with a John Paddock game, the John Paddock drive, you can talk about Newton, who basically completely shut down the Minnesota offense almost solo. If you compare first half stats and second half stats, you have another. It's Caden Fagan. I mean, this man, every other running back that we have was out and is essentially out for the season right now. So we needed him to not just produce, we also needed him to stay healthy. And he absolutely did that. And, catching a 54-yard screen pass and running it to, get us 6 points. There's so many ways that you can talk about who the most important player of that game was. And, again, Barry Lenny, he gets a lot of flack, and a lot of it at, multiple points of the season was worth it. But right now, it's hard not to think that, he's kind of built a system to the point where I think Illinois has the best offense in the Big Ten West.
Yeah, I mean,
What was that?
absolutely, you gotta say that they
Yeah.
have the best offense in the Big Ten West. I mean, 27 points, I gotta look at the stat sheet. That's gotta be a high of Big Ten West versus Big Ten West games and in the victory score. So, I mean, Luke Altmaier was 24 for 31 with 3 touchdowns and a single interception. Yes, an interception could have sealed the fate for Illinois if the defense didn't step up, but the defense did step up and gave the opportunity for Luke Altmaier. It ended up being John Paddock, but Luke Altmaier set Illinois up to be in this game. And then, of course, the big special teams play at the very, very beginning of the game. You can't forget about that. Getting a first possession. That's something that Illinois has struggled with by striking early. I mean, you think back to the Purdue game. Illinois was the one who made that a big time mistake to kind of turn the tide early on of what that game looked like against Purdue. This was the opposite. Illinois took advantage and they scored on that first possession, a true touchdown. So I'm pretty excited about what this offense has done.
And it's not just the offense. I watched that first half and I was just like, here, this defense can't figure it out. I get it. They're young, they're green, but it seemed like Minnesota was just completing long pass play after long pass play. But, I don't know if it's all Newton, but as soon as that second half started, all of a sudden the Illinois defense, stepped up a notch. The guys were making plays in the backfield, as you talked about. The second to last, after Isaiah Williams' fumble, which was just heartbreaking for the kid because, he's been playing his butt off. For our defense to be able to get the ball back almost well, actually, no, they scored a touchdown, but afterwards, like after we scored, to have them shut them down after on 4 plays, it's like this is what we wanted, because it would have been a very Illinois story to score and then just end up scoring too early with 54 seconds left. We've seen that
Yep.
play out before against other teams, where all of a sudden we'll play a prevent defense. We'll rush 3 guys. That's not what Aaron Henry did. I'm pretty sure I counted on the rewatch 5 guys he was rushing. He did not lose the aggression on the last drive of the game, which is very, not what coaches in the modern game do. And so, first half I had some questions and issues with the defense, and this was a super high scoring affair for a two Big Ten West teams in that first half. But
Let's get us to the Pac-12. It's time. Let's go. We're
bring on
we're playing the
Washington.
same game as Oregon.
Bring on Washington. But yeah, it's nice feeling this way. You can give a game ball to Barry Lundy Jr. You can give a game ball to Aaron Henry, as you talked about our special teams. Like we're playing well in all 3 facets of the game, and now, at 4 wins, all we need is 2 out of 3, and we do have a pretty relatively favorable schedule, to accomplish that feat. But what we don't want is to be on the high that we're sort of feeling right now, and then we have Indiana coming to our place and lay an egg, because then it's just going to be one of the same cycles over and over again. And, I don't think it's going to happen. Brett's going to have our team ready, but we got to keep this positive momentum going in because, technically the Big Ten West is not out of reach yet.
I think we have like a 1.1% chance of winning according to ESPN's FPI. So there's a chance that could happen. But I mean, you think of bowl game predictions, and Illinois is back in those articles. I've seen the Las Vegas Bowl on CBS.com. That was be against USC, which just be kind of funny knowing that they're coming into the conference next year. And then I've also seen a rematch with Toledo in the Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit. So the fact that Illinois has put themselves back in this position is just incredible motivation by Brett Bielema, because I've seen a lot of Illinois teams just completely fall off the edge whenever big time losses happen. So credit to Brett Bielema and his staff for keeping the fight for this Illini football team. And you think of what Illinois has in front of them, you gotta take advantage of of this Indiana and this Northwestern game. I know Indiana beat Wisconsin. I know Northwestern has been better than they initially anticipated beginning of the year, but Illinois in the past has done a great job of taking great big time games and rendered them meaningless down the stretch. So hopefully, this Minnesota win isn't one of those meaningless games that we thought was big at the time, a la Penn State a few years ago and the like. So these next two games are going to be huge. These next three games are going to be huge, and hell, Illinois could go 3-0 in this final stretch, which would be crazy but phenomenal.
Can you imagine if at the end of the season someone created a recap video of the season of Illini Cast, where at the first couple episodes we're talking about, winning the Big Ten West, 10 wins, 9 wins. Halfway through, we're at 2 wins, and you claim that, yeah, we're probably not going to win another game on the rest of the season, and now here we are again, week 10, or between week 10 and 11, and you're talking about going 3-0 again to finish 7-5. This is a roller coaster of being an Illinois football fan. We ride those highs, we ride those lows. It's been such an up and down season, but it doesn't have to be a waste just yet. Getting those extra 15 practices from making it to a bowl game would be huge for our secondary and our team um, going into next year, because right now we're going to need it, and it's just nice. You know, we played the tough part of our schedule. Iowa's Iowa. I get it, but I don't think they look unbeatable by any stretch of the imagination. We have an offense compared to the other teams that they're playing, so it's a simple matter of, can we take care of business at home? Because Brett Bielema teams, we seem to have a pretty decent record of going on the road and stealing victories. Even this season, doing it at Maryland and now at Minnesota. But it's these home games that sometimes we just lay out clunkers, and losing to Wisconsin at the last minute, and we're I think 6.5 point favorites against Indiana. And I mean, how nice would it feel if we just dominate this game? Let's keep it double digits. Like, play the way we thought Illinois football was going to be playing all season long. Send Tom Allen to his next career opportunity, and that'll set up some excitement for that game against Iowa, which, from, I don't know if you saw the schedule update, the Big Ten is using or the TV networks are using their TV Flex for it, so that could potentially be the big noon game on Fox, and that's pretty exciting.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at this Illinois season coming up. That Indiana game, you're gonna have Jerzon Newton the entire game. You're not gonna have him for just the second half. So I think that'll be a built-in game changer. Plus, you're going to have Isaiah Williams playing with the most confidence he's ever played with in an Illinois uniform, which is scary to think about, even because he's been so good with what he's been tasked to do. I mean, the fact that he got his touchdowns was just so gratifying to him, I'm sure, after all of this, all season long, not having a single touchdown to his name this season. To finally break through is going to be something to watch, because I think it's going to give trust for Luke Altmaier to throw him the ball downfield, knowing that he's going to make the play. And it's just going to open up this offense so much. And when you can open up the offense, you can ground and pound with Caden Fegan, who had a great game himself.
It's, just continue to grow every week by week. As I kind of kicked off the podcast saying that outside a very dumb penalty, Illinois football has played up to the abilities of all the best teams in the Big Ten West. That's all you and I really projected at the beginning of the year. And sure, it's coming together a little late. And now those losses to Nebraska and Purdue, in particular Purdue, sting a little bit more because you just kind of wonder what the heck happened. But the season's still salvageable. 6-6 is in our sights. We just got to take care of business, and we were questioning the coaching staff a couple weeks ago and whether they were the right people to play in the modern times and have our kids getting ready to play. But the performance that they've had the last couple weeks, whether it be after the bye, again having a good game against Wisconsin, the Maryland game, I'm really excited right now. I'm hoping I can keep this energy level the rest of the season, and we can talk about whether we make Illini Cast our premier season. We make a little uh, a trip out to preferably Vegas as opposed to Detroit.
That would be pretty awesome. I mean, looking at the team stats in this Minnesota game too, if you'd have told me Illinois would have lost the turnover battle 3-1, I would have been like, game over. If you would have told me that the penalties were 4 penalties for 33 yards for Illinois, that's great for Illinois standards, by the way, of how the season's gone. But Minnesota only have 2 penalties for 10 yards. I would have said it's going to be a long day at the office. But then I looked at this number right here, and I think this kind of tells the story of this game. Illinois on third down was 9 for 17. This Illinois defense held Minnesota 3 for 12. That is definitive growth of this Aaron Henry defense. I know 26 points is a lot in the Big Ten West scheme of things, but the fact that they were 3 for 12 in an area that Illinois has struggled mightily in and during the non-conference play and against the likes of Purdue and Nebraska not being able to get off the field, and then Wisconsin in the second half, 3 for 12 is a godsend. And I think that's big time story on why Illinois won this game.
I get that it looks like what's the name, Cooper DeJean's going to probably win Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. I know Newman gets a lot of talk, for his credentials. And I know Newton gets his time in the publicity too, but I just think anyone who's been watching Johnny Newton this season and sees, like, is there any other lineman who's literally getting triple guarded on every single play and still putting out the numbers that he is?
I
It's
mean,
one of
there's not
those.
there's not Aiden Hutchinson this year, so I think Jerzon Newton has that claim of being the best defensive lineman in the Big Ten.
And if not more than that, if not the country. I know he doesn't have the size that that's going to make him a immediate number one type of pick, but I mean, I think any team that's able to get him in the top 10, top 15 of this upcoming draft is going to have a gem of a player because he is a complete workhorse out there, and you can see that he's one of those players that even when he's surrounded by players who aren't performing up to their abilities, it doesn't have an effect on him and his motor. He still performs to his capabilities every single hike of the football, and it's going to be fun rooting for him at the next level next year.
And credit to Randolph Jr. for leading the team tackles in the game. That's pretty huge that it wasn't a linebacker or a secondary member, meaning that there was some close calls at the line of scrimmage, and Keith Randolph was able to get the job done, even with the absence of Jerzon Newton in that first half. So, credit to the Illini defense in the first half for even just holding up without that dominant force of Jerzon Newton. And that first half could have easily just told the story of what this Illini football game could have looked like if Minnesota rallied, knowing that Jerzon Newton was out, scoring 21-7, something along those lines. But the defense held up just enough to wait for the Jerzon Newton comeback train to come in.
And it came in. It's again, it's a tale of two halves for the defense, but the defense really stepped up. As you talked about, yeah, 26 points is a lot of points to give up, but 14 of those were very relatively quickly in the first
Mm-hmm.
quarter. It was a shootout apparently in that first quarter, especially. It's funny if you think about it. The Iowa Northwestern game was on playing at the same time slot, so you saw one game which was 7-0 going late into the fourth quarter, and we scored more points in the first essentially 3 minutes of 4 or 5 minutes in the game than that game had in its entirety. But again, this is the Illinois. We have a good offense. You and I talked about it before, where the skill players are there. Yeah, we wish we could get more separation from our wide receivers, but I think what it looks like now is that while Reggie Love is a good complementary running back, he's not Caden Fagan, and Caden Fagan constantly putting us in favorable third down scenarios is letting Luke Altmaier, who again had another great game in my opinion. He was able to make key connections. Yeah, he had a couple turnovers, but that's going to happen, especially when you have a younger quarterback. That last one, he kind of was forced to do something. And don't get me wrong, he needs to learn to. I think he holds on to the ball a little bit too long sometimes, but it's his first season as a full time starter. These are growing pains. What I'm glad to see is, for the most part, there's not a lot of people on Illini Twitter saying, "Oh, let's switch up starters." Let's just appreciate the John Paddock game for what it was. It's one of the reasons I love sports to begin with. Like, obviously, with his great grandfather, his grandfather, his uncle, all being Illinois alums, like that family gathering in the future. Now John is going to have his own Illini story, and let's just
Yes.
appreciate that for what it is. And obviously, we still want Luke taking the ball under center.
Yeah, I mean, like, how many times have you seen it in baseball where a pinch hitter hits a big time home run? Does that ultimately mean that pinch hitter is a better hitter than um, Albert Pujols or I don't know, Derek Lee, whoever you want to go with? No. It's just a great moment. I think Paddock had his moment, and we can all appreciate it, like you said. Going back to the passing game a little bit more, though, I mean, it was nice to see Tip Ryman get going down the middle of the field with that touchdown, that 15-yarder. And I mean, you saw Pat Bryant get 18 yards, a long catch, as well as Casey Washington. So there was some explosive-esque plays there to be had for Luke Altmaier in this Illini offense. So that was improved more than I initially thought it would be against the likes of a Tyler Nubin-led secondary.
And we needed it because, again, we found out after the game, Aiden Lawford out for the year. He's having surgery, so we had what converted linebacker Nick Fidenzo as our backup running back. You
Mhm.
can see we try to run a lot of screens to Isaiah Williams to kind of play a de facto backup running back. But again, this is all credit to Caden Fagan. He did win Big Ten Freshman of the Week, and he completely deserved it. The way we relied on him, being able to have the receivers and tight end, like you mentioned, uh, be able to complement the game that he was having, so that the Minnesota defense couldn't completely zero in on Fagan and shut him down. It was a really well called game by Barry Lunny, and it's nice, it's again, it's nice having this review episode and complimenting our offense, complimenting our defense, talking about how our special teams had a great game, and again, I know I keep repeating myself, but I just want to keep moving this forward and do this again in Indiana next week.
Absolutely. Illinois favored by 6.5 against Indiana in Champaign. That game will be at 11 a.m. on Big Ten Network. And we have an Illini basketball game tonight. If you're listening, it probably already took place. But it's well noted that the Illini basketball season will have officially begun by the time you're listening to this podcast. And Sonny, what is your final preseason-esque thoughts on this Illini basketball team?
I like our team. I'm going to, unlike our football team, which we knew was going to be in kind of a transition year, relying a lot on younger players who, they lost like a lot of the players that we were counting on originally from last year. This basketball team is a little bit different. We got a lot of game experience on the court, and you kind of saw it against Kansas. I think Brad Underwood has found his guys finally. It's not a matter of him just saying it. I think he's found the guys who actually do share his sort of mentality. So I think, regular season, we're a good team. Ultimately, I think I projected us out to the fourth seed. And once we get to the no fourth in the conference, and then when we make it to the tournament, I think we're about a 4 or 5 seed. But finally, Underwood gets past, or at least to the Sweet 16. I'm going to say a light eight.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Bardo on our episode with him got me jazzed when I asked him what the ceiling of this team is, and he said Final Four. That kind of made me open my eyes a little bit more because Steven just doesn't blow smoke about Illini. If you know Steven, if you've listened to Steven in the past, he is honest about what goes on in the orange and blue. And whenever you hear Final Four from a guy like that, it opens your eyes, and I can definitely see it. I think they are in that realm of a Final Four like team. Yes, it all depends on what happens with a referee call in an Elite Eight with 1 minute, 30 seconds to go, and that can determine your season. But I think Illinois has firmly put their spot in the way. So I think this is I think this could be just an incredibly special season with Marcus Damask being a special piece for this Illini team that not a lot of the country or conference knows about. And you look at the way they're going to play. I think the passing ability of this team is going to help out with the shooting ability on this team as well. Because how many times last season where there's so many junk shots that were being taken, I think that's the end of that this year. I think Terrence Shannon's going to get his couple a game, but it's warranted because he's the stud. So I'm just completely excited about the ceiling of this team. There's going to be some hard times. That January stretch is brutal. The 4 ranked non-conference games are brutal, but whenever you're a team with that much experience, it's all worth it because in the NCAA tournament, that experience will shine through at the very end.
You alluded to it earlier. Definitely, if you have not checked out the Stephen Bardo interview that we did a couple days ago for the basketball season preview, it got me amped up as well. You know, we're very lucky to have a guest of that caliber and that knowledge level join us to talk about not just Illinois basketball, but Big Ten basketball in general. And the good thing about this season is, like you also just said, we're going to find out very quick with some very intense matchups early in the season to see and gauge just how good we are. If we can stay healthy, you know, we've got that big game against Marquette, them coming into Champaign. That's going to be must-watch television. They got a lot of talent coming back with a very red-hot head coach. So, you know, it's nice that our floor has risen so high in college basketball, considering what it was at the pre-Underwood levels. You know, we can say somewhat relatively confidently, you know, that we're going to be playing in a tournament this year. And most likely it's going to be the NCAA tournament. And so these big games are going to matter. You know, it's going to be nice to see our young players, our players in general, just get that game experience in super intense situations that are going to kind of simulate what it's going to feel like playing in March in those, you know, first round, second round of the NCAA tournament, because that experience matters more than ever. I think right now it matters, and Underwood is not shy about scheduling a tough schedule. I've said before, I don't think he cares as much to win the regular season title for the Big Ten. I think he's done it. He's, you know, he still has the most wins of any Big Ten coach in the last 5 or 6 years. I think he's gearing this team up for the postseason. I'm, you know, very excited to see uh, where we end up.
I mean, it's kind of crazy where Brad Underwood is from his peers that were hired at the same time as him in the Big Ten. I mean, you look at Archie Miller, correct, or Sean Miller of Indiana. One one of the
That
Millers.
was Archie. Sean Miller was
Yes,
Arizona.
yes, Archie Miller of Indiana, and Ohio State's coach as well. They were all hired at the same time as Brad Underwood, and Brad Underwood has lapped both of them, which is kind of unreal to think of with the expectations that were applied to all three whenever they first got hired. So Holtman of Ohio State. So I mean, it's just incredible what Illinois has been able to accomplish recruiting wise and on the court backing that up. And I think they have another alpha this year with Terrence Shannon Jr., like they had it with Io and like they had with Kofi. I think he is going to make noise in the Big Ten and more than likely be that final top five in the all conference team.
And it's, I think if Terrence can be that alpha that we want him to be, I think we have enough secondary players. Like if our second best player on one night has an off night, we have a third, a fourth, a fifth guy to, step up and take their place. So that's kind of what makes me so excited about this team. You and I talked about in our basketball season preview about who's going to be the second leading scorer. And we named three, four, five guys because right now we don't know. But
Yeah,
that attributes to the the how deep our basketball team is this season. Whether it's Guerrier, whether it's Domas, Coleman Hawkins, Justin Harmon was brought in to score buckets for us. It's going to be a fun watch, night in and night out, and it starts off tonight against Eastern Illinois. And if we all of a sudden lose this game, then you know that'll be very typical Illinois. But I can't see that
back on the
happening.
roller coaster.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is going to be an exciting year, and I can't wait to watch it at 7 o'clock. See the first signs of Illinois basketball and real basketball, not an exhibition style like it was against Kansas. But Sonny, I'm wearing my Cubs gear. I know we're not a Cubs podcast, we're not a baseball podcast, but we're both Cub fans, and the Cubs made the biggest acquisition of the offseason so far. They fired David Ross and hired Milwaukee Brewer manager Craig Counsell in a back-to-back move, and I was floored. I was floored by it. I saw the buzz about Craig Counsell picking his new job like he was a recruiter in the transfer portal, and then the reports come out that he comes to the Chicago Cubs, and I could not be completely more floored than I am right now.
Yeah. I mean, the order might have been reversed. It seems like we hired Council first, and then we decided to fire David Ross.
Yeah.
But this is eerily remnant of what happened a few years back when Joe Madden got out of his contract with the Devil Rays because I think their GM had taken the job at in LA,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden, we heard out of nowhere that we fired what's the name, Renteria at the time,
Rick
and then
Rick Renteria.
Rick Renteria. That's right, Rick Renteria hired Joe Madden. Completely unexpected. Same thing happened this year. You and I, we kind of texted back and forth. We're not exactly the biggest fans of David Roth's his managerial abilities. Obviously he's meant a lot to the Cubs organizations. He's had a lot of key moments, and he's going to be remembered for a very, very long time. But I mean, what a home run this was! This
Yeah.
was the Chicago Cubs to me showing that they're serious about being a contender moving forward. Not only did they hire, arguably top five manager in baseball, but they paid him more than any manager has been paid before in the history of the sport. And that shows that, hey, that move doesn't make sense if you're not ready to spend some serious money to upgrade your weaknesses on your roster as is. So, just as it's one of those where, as a Cubs fan, if this is kicking off the offseason, I'm really looking forward to seeing what else we're going to do, because no longer do I think it's going to be a complacent offseason. I think that, a lot of the big names we are kind of hearing about, those are genuine attempts that we're going to try to make. And I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Cubs don't have the financial flexibility to be like, all right, we're getting Otani, we're getting Soto, we're getting Bellinger, all of these guys. But I think you can start to maybe make a puzzle piece of what multiple moves could look like for this offseason, because Craig Counsell isn't a guy that messes around. He's not a guy that's going to go to a rebuilding organization just because they paid him the most money. I think this is a play that he feels like he can win a championship for the Chicago Cubs. And I think you can start talking about pairing a Bellinger with a Otani, or a Bellinger with a Soto trade. I think those multiple moves, or Bellinger and Aaron Nola, I think those are the kind of moves that you can start to anticipate for the Cubs, because they have a lot of prospect capital right now. They have a lot of dollars to spend, and a manager that is going to put his players in the best position alongside that star power. I mean, I was shocked about Joe Madden. It felt like that was like weeks leading up though. This one just fell out of complete sky. Like the fact that me and a group message were chatting about like the possible Yankees as a destination for Craig Counsell just because of Aaron Boone's situation and the money that they have. The Cubs were jokingly on my radar because I was like, like even tweeted out like 5 minutes before the news broke, like, hey, what if they just told David Ross to pack his bags? And then they told David Ross to pack his bags. But I know I wasn't the biggest fan of David Ross, but I do want to thank him for everything that he did in 2016 and kind of building the confidence levels of the younger players in the organization, at least showing them how to be great major leaguers. And I don't think you get some of the growth for like a Nico Horner without the likes of David Ross mentoring him. So it is kind of going to be challenging, I'm sure, in the clubhouse to kind of talk about this move because the clubhouse liked David Ross so much. But I feel like Craig Counsell, being a former player as well, he'll understand how to go in that situation and discuss his strategy with his team. So, what an unbelievable shift of how you can focus on Cubs baseball this offseason. You knew it was going to be somewhat big, but this kind of opens the floodgates to all of your wildest fantasies coming true about this roster.
Yeah, and we know now apparently we have 21 extra million to spend in this offseason. I'm not sure what Marcus Stroman and his agent were thinking. I thought, signing up for that player option was a no-brainer, but him essentially declining that, and someone reported that the Cubs are going to go in a different direction moving forward from Stroman, and they're not going to be bringing him back. Again, just gives us more of that financial flexibility to, make a play for the Sotos, the Otanis. Alfonso's a name that's linked with us constantly.
Hmm.
But it would have been tough that if Stroman locked in, came back, and we were talking extension with Hendricks like we have been. That kind of limits the rotation spots that we had when we obviously still need a clear upgrade. But now with Stroman, declining and becoming a free agent, that gives us that flexibility to, make that big boy move in finding an arm that we obviously just made with our manager hiring. This is tough. David Ross in some ways is a Cubs legend moving forward. And yeah, his managing abilities were critiqued on almost on a nightly basis, but on a high level, this is kind of bad juju what we did to David Ross. He's always been a company man, a team guy, but this was a move that the Yankees would make. A team who has financial might, who is just basically a cutthroat organization who's just trying to win, and that's all you and I really want. We know we have the resources. What you and I we weren't always sure about was whether the team and organization was trying to win. And this move out of nowhere today. I mean, again, I think a tweet was released, that Craig Counsell was going to coach for a team that already had a manager.
Yeah.
Someone tweeted that. The group chats went crazy. I'm thinking, again, nobody thought it was the Cubs. I joked around in my group chat, it'd be nice if it was the Cubs. And then not 6 or 7 minutes later, Ken Rosenthal announces, it's he's going to be the Cubs' next manager, and it's got Cubs Twitter going crazy. I'm excited for the hire. I think it's the absolute right hire. It gives me Madden vibes, which is nothing but a good thing. And as we just talked about, it kicks off the offseason, an offseason where I was unsure if we're going to be as aggressive as I think we need to be. I think our first move was as aggressive as can be, and I think that move only makes sense if we're about to kind of flex some of the financial resources that we've been kind of hoarding up the last couple seasons, and get ourselves to a top 5, top 6 payroll in baseball, and have the best team moving forward next year.
Absolutely. I can't wait for this offseason to develop a little bit. It's going to be a great one. Sonny, I want to thank you for a great episode of the Illini Cast talking about a lot of great things. Cubs, Illini basketball, and Illini football now back in the bowl picture. It's sports heaven right now. So Keep following us, IlliniCast at Sunny V at the Sunny V on Twitter for him, at AB1132 for me, and at IlliniCast of course, to get all of the podcasts right into your Twitter feed. Sunny, it has been a great chat with you, and I can't wait to talk more Illini sports with you.
Yep. Make sure you check out the Stephen Bardo interview that we just released this week. We'll have our Indiana preview coming up this season. And we can title this one the Feel Good episode because they're all positive vibes in the 40 minutes we were talking today.
Absolutely. Sunny, it's been a good one.
All right, Austin.